Welcome to the presentation on links for Web Design 1. Now make sure before this video continues you have your Google Keep notes set up so you can take notes and know what you're doing when it comes to links. So we have two new vocabulary words we need to know to make sure you know what I'm talking about. So a website is a combination of multiple web pages. So your website consists of all the HTML files inside a single folder. Now what's a web page? A web page is a single page on the internet and has an entirely unique address, which is called a URL. So when you're on Google Chrome and that long link at the top, that is called a URL, otherwise known as a Uniform Resource Locator. You don't have to know that full name, just know that a URL is entirely unique to any web page on the internet. So a web page is unique and a website is a collection of web pages. Think of it as our classroom, right? All of you have a unique lunch ID, but together we make up a classroom, or together your unique IDs make up a web page. So links. What's a link? Links are found nearly on every single web page in the world. They allow users to click their way from page to page, and links are defined using the A element as well as the href attribute. So you can't see it, so let me turn my webcam off because this is actually important. So you see this is the opening tag for our A element with an href attribute, and we link it to the value where we want it to go. So there's three types of links, and you have to know what all of them are, because if I tell you where to go, you need to know where to send the link. So our first one is an external link, and it's a link that takes you to a totally different website. For example, if you are scrolling through Instagram and you click an ad, and it takes you to that store's website, that's an external link because you were originally on Instagram, but it took you to an external website. So I'm going to use the pointer here. So if I were to click this link, it would take me from my Google Doc to the W3 Schools website. So href, the value, so our attribute, right? The attribute value is to a new location. It's to a new website. So we have our A element, and in our opening tag, we have the href attribute value combination. Then we put the text that we want to click between our opening and closing tag. So we have our opening tag here and our closing tag here, which then makes this link clickable, right? So we want to wrap, like you're wrapping a present, you want to wrap the text you want to click with your opening and closing A tag. Next up, you have the local link. So it's a link that takes you to a new page within the same website. So say you have your home page, right? And you want to go to the About page or the Contact page or the Songs page. As long as it's a page in your website, that's considered a local link. So this attribute is a file in the same folder as the other ones. So say we have a folder with our index.html file and a file called page2.html. On our index file, we would add a new h tag or a new h element, and our attribute value combination would be href. And the value would be the full file name, not just page2, page2.html. We need the full file name as the href. We wrap the text, right? So we have the opening A tag, the closing A tag, and we wrap the text we want to click so it becomes clickable. And that would take you to a new page in the same website, right? So in this case, we have two web pages under the same website, and we go from one to the other. That is a local link. Finally, we have an internal link. and that is a link that takes you somewhere new on the same page, right? So if you have like a really long web page and you want to take someone quickly from the top to the bottom, or if they scrolled all the way to the bottom, you want to give them a go back to the top button, you would use an internal link to link them to what's called an anchor somewhere on that web page. So this is what an internal link would look like. You use hrefs that link to an ID somewhere on the page. So this is a new attribute you can give to a spot on the web page to kind of create an anchor there. So if we had a location somewhere on our web page with a menu on it, we would add an anchor using the ID attribute, right? So say that menu had a header 1. We would give it an ID attribute value combination and call it menu. So that would be the unique ID on this page. And on our href, we would use the pound symbol as well as the ID to then link to this section of the website. So say at the top, we had our A element with our href equals hashtag menu, and we pressed it. It would take us to that same web page, but go to the bottom of the web page where the menu is. So in this case, you're using an ID instead of a file name or a URL, and the hashtag only goes here. The hashtag only goes in the href. When you give an element somewhere on your web page the ID, you just put the name. So whether it's ID menu, whether it's ID contact, you only put the words you want in the ID. The hashtag only goes in the href. So links can also have attributes outside of href. That's our first attribute. And that one is called the title attribute. So this provides information when you hover over the link, often referred to as a tooltip. Whenever you hover over something and little information pops up, that's called a tooltip. So if you notice here, and if you remember, any number of attributes can be applied to a single element tag. If we have 2 attributes, we don't need 2 element tags. So we have a single A opening tag with our href attribute linking to h2.html, which is this is like Dora the Explorer. Think about it for a second. It is a local link because it's taking us somewhere inside of our website. And then we have title, which is page 2. So when you hover over this link, I can't do it in Google Docs, but if this was a website, if you were to hover over that text, it would say page 2. So it would give a little tooltip, maybe if you wanted it to be about, right? It would give a little tooltip about where you're going. This is helpful because it kind of gives users an idea of what they are clicking if the text isn't specific enough. So again, 2 attributes for 1 element. You don't need 2 A tags for 2 attributes. Next slide. So if we were in person, you should be asking me 2 questions about this because, as always, you're not going to know it right away. But at the end of this video, you should go do the demo that I gave you to understand how to operate links just a little bit more before we move on to our final project. Thanks for watching.